What if the mind that feels out of control just needs to be seen, not fixed? There's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't show on the outside. Claire Mendoza knew it well. At 29, she looked perfectly functional. Pressed blouse, organized desk, coffee in hand by 8 a.m. sharp. But inside her skull, it was chaos. A constant, relentless noise of tasks overlapping with worries, overlapping with plans, overlapping with regrets. Her mind was a browser with 47 tabs open, all of them buffering. She worked as an administrative assistant at a small insurance company in Portland, the kind of place where fluorescent lights hummed and motivational posters peeled at the corners. Claire was good at her job, efficient, reliable, the one everyone came to when systems broke down. Claire will handle it, they'd say. And she would. Because saying no felt like letting the entire office collapse. But lately, something had shifted. She'd started noticing things she couldn't ignore anymore, like how she held her breath during phone calls, how her jaw ached every morning from grinding her teeth in her sleep, how she'd scroll through her phone at 2 a.m., not looking for anything in particular, just unable to stop the compulsion to fill every second with input. Last Tuesday, during lunch, she'd spilled coffee all over an expense report she'd spent an hour organizing. The brown liquid spread across the numbers, and instead of grabbing napkins, Claire just sat there and cried. Not about the report. About the realization that she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt present in her own life. Everything had become automatic. Wake up tired, perform tasks, feel vaguely guilty about not doing more, sleep badly. Repeat. She existed in the narrow corridor between what I should have done and what I need to do next, never quite landing in now. That afternoon, something small happened, so small she almost missed it. She went to the supply closet to grab envelopes and found, wedged between a box of staples and some abandoned binders, a gray notebook. Nothing special. No name on it. Someone must have left it behind when they quit. Claire opened it out of boredom. Most of the pages were blank, but on the inside cover, someone had scribbled in small, hurried handwriting, "Write one honest line a day, and see what changes." She laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the empty supply closet. Another self-help trick. As if her problems could be solved by journaling. Still, she took the notebook. Maybe because it was free. Maybe because some part of her was desperate enough to try anything. That night, Claire sat at her kitchen table with the gray notebook in front of her. She'd bought expensive journals before, beautiful ones with leather covers and creamy pages, and they'd all stayed blank. The pressure to write something meaningful had paralyzed her every time. But this notebook was different. Forgotten, ugly, already marked with someone else's words. It demanded nothing. She picked up a pen and, without thinking, wrote, "Today I realized I don't breathe when I talk." That was it. One sentence, not profound, not literary, just honest. She closed the notebook and went to bed, expecting to feel nothing. But as she lay in the dark, something strange happened. Her mind kept returning to that single line, not analyzing it, just noticing it, as if she'd finally given her thoughts somewhere to land. The next morning, she didn't plan to write again. But at lunch, sitting in her car with a sandwich she wasn't hungry for, she opened the notebook and wrote, "I said yes to covering Janet's shift, even though I'm already exhausted. Why can't I just say no?" Another day, another line. "My body feels like it's vibrating even when I'm sitting still." She wasn't journaling in the traditional sense. No long entries about her feelings, no gratitude lists or manifestation exercises. Just one honest observation per day. Sometimes a sentence, sometimes a question, sometimes just a single word. Stuck. But resistance came quickly. After a week, her inner critic got loud. "This is stupid. You're not solving anything. You're just complaining on paper. What's the point?" Claire almost quit. The notebook sat untouched for 3 days. But on the 4th day, during a particularly brutal afternoon where her boss asked her to redo an entire presentation because he'd changed his mind about the vision, Claire grabbed the notebook with a kind of fury and wrote, "I'm so tired of making other people's chaos look organized." The honesty shocked her. She'd never admitted that out loud. Maybe she'd never even admitted it to herself. And in that moment, she understood. The notebook wasn't about solving anything. It was about seeing. Really seeing what was happening inside her. She decided to keep going. Something unexpected started happening in week 3. Claire began reading back through what she'd written. At first, it was just curiosity, flipping through the pages while drinking morning coffee. But as she read, a pattern emerged so clearly it made her uncomfortable. Almost every single line started with, "I have to," "I need to," or "I should." "I have to finish the quarterly report by Friday. I need to call Mom back even though I have nothing new to say. I should feel grateful for this job." It was like looking at a map of her mind and realizing she'd been walking the same circular path for years. Her entire internal narrative was built on obligation, not desire, not choice. Just endless, invisible commands she gave herself every single day. The realization landed heavy. This wasn't just about work stress. This was about how she thought, how she'd programmed her own mind to operate from a place of constant debt, owing time, energy, and emotional labor to everyone but herself. Claire felt something close to grief. Had she ever asked herself what she actually wanted? That night, she made a decision that felt both small and enormous. She wrote at the top of a new page, "Experiment. Every time I write 'I have to,' change it to 'I want to' and see if it's true." It felt like a game. A weird, uncomfortable game, but she committed. The next day, "I want to wake up at 6 a.m. She stared at the sentence. Did she? No, she wanted to sleep until 8. So why was she doing it? Because some imagined version of a successful person did. She changed her alarm. "I want to attend the team meeting tomorrow." Did she? Actually, yes. She liked collaborating when the work mattered. That one stayed. "I want to apologize to Derek for being short with him yesterday." No, she didn't. She was short with him because he interrupted her 3 times during a presentation. She didn't owe him an apology. He owed her respect. This was dangerous territory. Claire felt like she was dismantling something inside herself, and she wasn't sure what would be left when she finished. But she also felt, for the first time in years, awake. The notebook stopped being a notebook. It became a mirror. Every page reflected back a part of Claire she hadn't been paying attention to, and the reflection was clarifying, uncomfortable, and strangely addictive. She started carrying it everywhere. Not to write constantly, but to capture the moment when she noticed something true. The notebook had taught her a new skill: observation without judgment. She'd write a line, close the book, and go about her day. But that single sentence became an anchor point, a moment of contact with her actual experience instead of her runaway thoughts. One evening, about 2 months in, Claire sat in her apartment with the notebook open and realized something profound. Every page she'd written was a breadcrumb trail back to herself. She could see how her thoughts spiraled, how she catastrophized, how she automatically assumed worst-case scenarios. But she could also see her humor, her resilience, her small moments of clarity. The gray notebook had become more than an object. It was a practice, a ritual of 5 minutes that created space between stimulus and reaction. It was her one guaranteed moment each day where she wasn't performing for anyone. Not her boss, not her mother, not even the voice in her head that constantly evaluated whether she was doing enough. Writing a single line had become her daily act of honesty. And honesty, she was learning, was its own form of healing. But the real test came when she least expected it. It was a regular Thursday when Claire's boss, Karen, called her into the office. Claire assumed it was another crisis to manage. Instead, Karen smiled and said, "We'd like to promote you to operations manager. Salary increase, your own office, direct reports. You've earned it." This was the moment Claire had been working toward for 5 years. The validation she'd been waiting for. The external proof that all the late nights and swallowed frustrations had meant something. But instead of excitement, she felt nothing. Then something worse than nothing. Dread. "Can I think about it?" The words came out before she could stop them. Karen looked confused. "Of course. Take a few days. But Claire, this is a big opportunity. Don't overthink it." Don't overthink it. That was exactly what Claire did with everything. But this time, she knew she wasn't overthinking. She was finally thinking clearly. That night, she sat with the notebook for a long time before writing. When she finally put pen to paper, the words came out slow and certain. "If I accept what the world calls success, I might lose what I'm starting to recognize as peace." She read the sentence 3 times. Each time it felt more true. The next few days were strange. Claire kept going to work, kept performing her tasks, but something had fundamentally shifted. She started noticing how the promotion would change her life. More hours, more responsibility, more people depending on her, less time for the small practices that were slowly rebuilding her from the inside out. She wrote every night, letting the notebook help her think. What if success isn't the same as healing? I've been climbing a ladder I didn't choose. The exhaustion isn't from working hard. It's from working toward the wrong thing. By the end of the week, Claire knew what she had to do. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. She walked into Karen's office and said something she'd never said before. "Thank you, but I'm going to decline the promotion. Actually, I'd like to request a transfer to part-time if that's possible. I need to recalibrate my life, and I can't do that while taking on more." Karen stared at her like she'd announced she was joining a cult. "Are you sure? This could affect your career trajectory." "I know," Claire said, and she meant it. She knew exactly what she was giving up. What she didn't know yet, but was beginning to trust, was what she might gain. The transition to part-time felt like stepping off a moving train. Disorienting at first, then strangely calm. Claire's co-workers didn't understand. A few made jokes about her early retirement. Others asked with concerned voices if everything was okay at home, as if the only reason someone would choose less work was crisis. But Claire had stopped explaining herself. The notebook had taught her something crucial. Not everything needed to be justified to other people. Some truths were quiet, personal, and didn't require consensus. With her new schedule, she had 3 afternoons a week that belonged entirely to her. At first, she didn't know what to do with the space. She felt guilty, restless, like she was supposed to be productive. Old patterns die hard, but she kept writing, 1 line a day. And slowly, the pages changed. The early entries had been dense, frantic, full of shoulds and anxieties, but as months passed, the sentences got shorter, simpler, more present. "The light through my window at 4 p.m. is gold. I laughed today and meant it. Enough. That last one surprised her. She'd written just one word, enough, and closed the notebook. She sat with the word for a long time, feeling its weight. Her whole life had been organized around the belief that she was never enough. Not enough time, money, energy, achievement, worth. But what if that was just a story she'd been telling herself? What if enough wasn't a destination but a choice? The notebook had given her something unexpected. Perspective on her own mind. She could see her thoughts now, instead of being carried away by them. She could notice when she spiraled, when she catastrophized, when she slipped into old patterns of obligation and overwhelm. And in noticing, she found she had choice. The practice wasn't about fixing herself, it was about seeing herself clearly. And in that clarity, transformation happened naturally. Not through force, but through awareness. One evening, almost a year after finding the gray notebook, Claire sat down and flipped through every single page. She watched her own mind evolve across the months. The shift from chaos to calm wasn't dramatic. It was incremental, almost invisible day by day. But page by page, the change was undeniable. She'd reprogrammed herself, not with affirmations or positive thinking, but with consistent, honest observation. One line at a time. 2 years later, Claire started leading small workshops called One Line a Day. She didn't advertise herself as a coach or guru, she just told her story and offered a practice. Each participant received a simple gray notebook, and the only instruction was, write one honest line daily. No rules, no pressure, just observation. The workshops filled up quickly. Women who looked exactly like Claire used to look, polished on the outside, unraveling on the inside, would show up carrying their exhaustion like invisible weight. Claire always started the same way. This isn't about journaling. This isn't about gratitude lists or manifestation. This is about creating one moment each day where you stop performing and start seeing. Your line can be angry, sad, confused, or joyful. It just has to be true. At the end of each 8-week session, she'd ask participants to read one line from their notebooks, any line they chose. Every single time someone would cry, not from sadness, but from recognition. The relief of finally being witnessed, even if just by themselves on a page. Claire still kept her own practice. Every evening, no matter what, she wrote one line. Some days it was profound. Most days it was mundane. But the practice itself had become sacred, not because it was magical, but because it was consistent. It was her daily proof that she could show up for herself. On the 2-year anniversary of finding the notebook, Claire wrote, I used to think peace meant having no problems. Now I know it means having space between the problem and my reaction to it. The notebook gave me that space. She closed the book and looked at the cover. The gray was more faded now, the edges soft from use. She thought about the person who'd left it behind in that supply closet, probably having no idea they'd set something in motion. That night, Claire did something she'd been planning for months. She bought 50 gray notebooks and left them in random places around the city. Coffee shops, library benches, bus stops, park tables. Inside each one, she wrote on the first page, write one honest line a day and see what changes. She didn't sign them, didn't expect anything in return. She just wanted to pass forward the gift she'd received. The reminder that transformation doesn't require perfection. It only requires presence. And sometimes, presence begins with a single, honest line. Claire walked home through the Portland streets feeling lighter than she had in years. Not because all her problems were solved. She still had hard days, anxious moments, times when her mind spiraled. But now she had a practice, a way to meet herself exactly where she was. And that made all the difference. The notebook had taught her the truth she'd spent years looking for. Peace isn't found in controlling your thoughts. It's found in learning to observe them without being controlled by them. One line at a time, she'd rewritten her relationship with her own mind. And in doing so, she'd rewritten her entire life. Claire believed she needed to fix her mind to find peace. What she discovered was simpler and more powerful. She needed to see it clearly. The notebook didn't change who she was. It revealed who she'd been all along beneath the noise. One honest line per day became her bridge from chaos to clarity. Because the truth is, you don't need to become someone new. You just need to remember who you are when you stop performing. A page a day isn't magic. It's a mirror. And sometimes, that's exactly what transformation looks like. Claire's story reminds us that peace isn't found in controlling every thought. It's found in learning to witness them. One honest line a day became her bridge from mental chaos to inner clarity. Not through force, but through presence. So I ask you, what would change if you spent just 5 minutes a day being completely honest with yourself? If this story resonated with you, type clarity in the comments and let me know what city you're watching from. Subscribe and hit the bell, because every week I share stories that can shift how you see your struggles. Click the card on screen for another powerful transformation story. And remember, a page a day is a new mind in progress.